DOGE everywhere, including at the municipal level. Jacksonville's former council president launches a Duval DOGE effort and sees pushback before he described the plan in detail. And what about the workers seeing their positions eliminated at the federal level? Some say the answer could be in owning a small business. Our experts offer their insight into starting from scratch, buying a business, or even joining a franchise on This Week in Jacksonville. Thanks for joining us. We also focus today on Northeast Florida, the Jewish community, how they're responding to what they feel has been anti-Semitism. First, though, government efficiency. It's the rage these days, and a top-down movement that started in Washington, D.C. From Elon Musk leading President Trump's DOGE to Governor DeSantis announcing a similar effort in state government. And there's now a push in Jacksonville. City Councilman Ron Salem is joining us today. Councilman, tell us about this. I guess right off the cuff, this is what you're calling Duval DOGE.
First of all, thanks for having me, Ken.
Of course.
We have initiated an effort. This week we had a meeting of the City Council where the Council Auditor Kim Taylor and I presented several ideas, and they seem to have the support of my colleagues, so we're going to be moving forward. And it's broken down really into two groups. One are some things that we can be working on immediately, such as some of the ideas the council auditor came up with was, one, a lot of duplication in services to children. You've got the Kids Hope Alliance, you've got various departments that are doing it. Potentially the new Jacksonville Journey will be funding some children's programs. Can we consolidate those? Can we put them all in one area and possibly save some money in that way? As you know, we've got a downtown investment authority, and we have an economic development group within the city. Do we need to have two? Can that be one group and save some money in that way? So we're going to take a look at several issues like that. The second part is where we will take a 2, 3, 4% of the budget once it's approved and put it what we say below the line, meaning it's below the line. They can't spend it, the administration can't, but they can come to us justifying they may need some of that money, and we can move it above the line so they can spend it.
What kind of percentage of the budget would it be?
Well, it was 2% when this concept was used back in 07, 08.
Okay.
I think there may be a desire to maybe increase that to 3, maybe 4%.
Yeah. I think, as we discussed, as we've been covering it this week, the mayor's got some comments on this, and I heard some pushback about, hey, council people who have been on council for a while, why are you trying now to save money? Shouldn't you have been doing that before? What's the response to that? And I think that I understand revenue is changing and what the financial picture for the city of Jacksonville in the future looks like.
Kent, we are looking at $80 to $100 million deficits over the next 3 or 4 years. A lot different than my first term under Mayor Curry. So there's a desire for the council to start planning for that. We can't, revenue, real estate values seem to be leveling off, so we are thinking the dollars coming into the city will be flat, if maybe even less.
Yeah, this auditor's report I was looking at, auditor's report last year showing city expenses could outpace the projected revenue by fiscal year 2028. And the difference is about $105 million in this report, again, from last year. So is this an element of what triggered your DOGE proposal?
Clearly. It was the reason we decided to do this now. Plus, the momentum from the federal and state level was, we just thought it was a good time to begin looking at this.
Yeah. There seems to be broad support, whether at that federal or state level, depending on how it's executed. I do want to show that this week crowds gathered outside City Hall to rally against Duval DOGE.
No DOGE to Duval! No DOGE to Duval!
All right, so this event sponsored by Beach's Activist Movement, Beach's Democratic Club, Duval Democrats, Indivisible Mandarin, and Indivisible Jacks Riverside. So, the councilman, they said a DOGE program in Jacksonville would disrupt vital city services for political gain. We have adequate legal and political mechanisms to combat waste, fraud, and corruption. We do not need or want DOGE in our city. How do you respond to that pushback? And by the way, that was offered before you had presented to your colleagues what your effort is.
Exactly. And I did not want to begin leaking out the effort before my colleagues heard it first. And I told everyone that asked me, wait till the event where we're going to discuss it. So those that were protesting had no idea what they were protesting against. And our effort locally is very targeted to specific ideas and then specific areas of the budget, controllable expenses. So our effort is not a chainsaw cutting out departments by any means. It's much more targeted, and I think can be significantly achieve some savings that way.
And even for people who have supported a government efficiency movement, they have criticized that chainsaw approach rather than the scalpel approach. It sounds like when you're saying more targeted, that's what you mean by that.
Absolutely, absolutely. There are no, and the other part of this whole effort will be conducted internally. The council auditor.
So there's no Elon Musk figure in the city of Jacksonville coming in to do all this.
There's no Elon Musk or anyone outside the government involved in this. The council auditor, Kim Taylor, and her staff have stepped up and told the council, we can handle this. We can identify the areas, we can do the research, we can provide you the information, and then the council can act upon it.
And this, you're chair of the Finance Committee, so clear that this is an element of what you're trying to do in representing people in Jacksonville. Next meeting on Duval DOGE, I understand, is this coming Tuesday, 12:30 p.m. at City Hall. As I understand, public comment will be heard at that meeting as well. Is that accurate?
That's correct. We had a very short window on Tuesday, right before the council meeting, to present it. Yeah. We did not take any public comment. That was intentional, but we will take public comment on Tuesday. Okay.
One thing before we have to go, this week we learned that Mayor Deegan's office and Meridian Waste reached a contract amendment agreement here. So as I understand it, it extends it 6 years, and this really it really changes only the impact, I guess I should say, is on the north side. So a substantial raise here. Some 29%, I think, is what was agreed on, and some incremental raises in the future. You'll have to approve that from City Council's perspective. That hasn't happened yet, right?
Well, this is the deal that the City Council approved about 6 weeks ago, and the mayor vetoed it, and then we overrode her veto, and then she said, "I'm not going to sign this agreement," and the general counsel claimed an authority issue to where she did not have to sign it, but through negotiations, they decided to support exactly what the council approved several weeks ago.
Sounds like you're in agreement then.
Oh, absolutely. I think the council's ecstatic. I think Meridian is a terrific provider. They came into our area where I live in Arlington during COVID and did a fantastic job. They're a good provider. They need these dollars. I'm pleased that the mayor decided we were correct and went along with us.
Yeah. Councilman, I appreciate the time today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Kent.
All right, so as we move on, what's Plan B for federal workers who lose their jobs? We're diving into that issue with a brainstorm about creating or buying into a small business. That's next on This Week in Jacksonville.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville with Kent Justice.
DOGE cuts are impacting local federal workers in Jacksonville. What happens to those people now? What are their options? Two local business people, Marshall Reddy and Kevin Monahan, have leaned into the topic, and they're encouraging people to investigate business ownership. Tens of thousands have already been affected by these DOGE cuts, and it seems even more will face changes in the near future.
Yes, and I think the three of us are going to wind up knowing somebody who's going to be affected by layoffs one way or another. And it's not all government. When we think of government, you know, people automatically think, well, you know, those fat cats are finally getting theirs. And they keep thinking of Washington, D.C. and the swamp and the drainage and all of that kind of thing. But the reality is, you know, government is a big part of our lives. And it flows through everything from the federal sector to the state sector. Federal money goes to the states funnel money to the municipalities, and then, you know, the biggest purchaser of goods and services from companies in the United States is the United States government. An amazing amount, trillions of dollars go through there and trickle down, and if contracts are lost, people are going to go. And of course, then there's the nonprofit sector, which do a lot of good in the public, but are funded from money that's from D.C., that goes to the states, that goes to the municipalities, and then goes to the street. So that's a lot of people. And then we had the other bonus. 4 million kids are going to be graduating in May across the United States looking for work.
And first of all, I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I grew up in a military family, all government workers, and entrepreneurialism was a word I'd never heard of. Got fired about 41 years ago after working myself through college, and that was a reality check because that wasn't how it was supposed to be. And that kind of started me down a different path, which was a paradigm shift. And so I became an entrepreneur. I've had 3 companies. Sold my last one to a partner and took a few months off. Thought, what do I want to do? What fits me? What would I match up well with? One thing I realized about my personality was I'm risk adverse. I'll take a calculated risk, but I don't want to take an unmitigated risk. And 30 plus years ago, everywhere I went, I saw franchises. And a friend of mine had an affiliation with a franchise down in South Florida. And next thing I know, I started looking at that and became a consultant. And 31 years later, that's what I do.
How about that?
Probably the best description I've come up with is I'm kind of like the eHarmony of franchising. I profile, I model, and I match people to franchise companies around the world.
All right. Yeah, so there's a lot in that. And I want to come back to this. Risk averse, but entrepreneur. I think my conception of an entrepreneur is, you got to be willing to take some risks. Kevin, tell us more about your background and where you're coming from.
Well, it's ironic. I come from an entrepreneurial family, but didn't do it for a long time. My parents owned a series of 5 restaurants and catering businesses, and I thought everybody was in the catering business until I grew up with other parents and friends and realized these people go to work every day and they come back at 6 o'clock, But I just had a vocational calling when I got out of school, which was business and political science, and my parents thought I'd never find a job anywhere. I wound up doing that. I kind of worked through the Department of Labor on a local level at the county in New Jersey where I came from. And from there, I became the head of economic development in the county and spent the rest of my career in economic development, which is going back to what he's talking about. Entrepreneurs take calculated risks. Entrepreneurship and economic development supports that. And so I've always seen myself as kind of a social worker for the potentially rich.
That's a good phrase.
And as time went on, I went from big boxes, trying to steal them from New York and bring them over to New Jersey, that kind of thing, to transitioning down to Jacksonville, where I worked for the University of Florida and of course, the University of North Florida, and work with smaller businesses. And that's been a great joy. And nonprofits as well. So it's been very rewarding. But I've been through a bunch of economic recoveries and layoffs and all those things. And this is nothing new. It's just how do we deal with it and how do we help people through it?
Yeah, a lot of people are talking about that this week because the stock market is taking a fall for consecutive days, Tuesday, Wednesday, and what have you. And that brings up this notion of, well, there's a lot of uncertainty because of what's happening with the Department of Government Efficiency and those efforts, seeing that the workforce is going, what's next? So let's hone in a little bit on this idea for folks who have been in the government workforce and now they're going to be looking for something else. Well, what's the message that you would have to them on making a transition or even considering?
Yeah, I mean, and Kevin and I were chatting about this earlier. I keep waiting for that special time when the heavens open and a spear comes down and it tells you this is the perfect time to start your business.
Yeah. How likely is that?
It hasn't happened in 30 years, but I'm an optimist. But there's never a perfect time. But I mean, I've gone through 9/11, H1N1, SARS, 2008, COVID. COVID was the best 2 years my business has ever had. So it just really kind of goes to, are you half full or half empty as far as your personality? And there's no right or wrong. It's just who are you and how do you want to look at opportunities and at what time frame do you look at them?
And you can hear my entire conversation with those two gentlemen on This Week in Jacksonville Business Edition. When that comes out this coming week, you'll be able to find new episodes every Thursday at 9 a.m. And you'll find that right now on News4Jax Plus under the channel This Week in Jacksonville. You'll also find This Week in Jacksonville Business Edition available wherever you find your podcasts like Apple, Spotify, or Google. It was a holiday week in the Jewish community. We're learning more next on This Week in Jacksonville. Stay with us.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville on Channel 4.
Amid a rise in anti-Semitism nationally, 8 Chabad Jewish centers across Northeast Florida joined together and organized unique and exciting programs for Jews to celebrate the Purim holiday. It took place this week, March 13th and 14th. Chabad Jewish centers across Duval, Baker, Clay, Nassau, St. John's, Flagler, and Putnam counties, aiming to support Jewish pride, affiliation, joy, and solidarity amid the increased adversity Jews have faced over the last year and a half. So joining me now, Rabbi Shmuley Novak and his wife Hannah Novak. How'd I do? I was practicing. Was I close?
Oh, that was perfect. Okay. Are you kidding me?
Co-founders of Chabad Town Center and UNF.
That's right.
I appreciate this. This came up this week because of the holiday, Purim, which I don't know much about. So I thought, what a great opportunity. Educate us. What is Purim? And then maybe some of what's on the table here, because you brought props. You said, hey, I can show you things as well.
Well, there's always going to be some food, and we have some hamantash and Purim cookies, really. Purim is a holiday that celebrates the salvation of the Jewish people in the face of Haman, a bad guy who wanted to kill, annihilate, and get rid of all of the Jewish people. Unfortunately, this is a recurring theme we see throughout history, and we celebrate with joy, with friendship, with camaraderie, and with community, giving each other strength and happiness at this time of the year.
Yeah. Hannah, you are here. You said, hey, first time on TV, but we're making it easy. Tell me about some of the holiday things that you enjoy and what people should understand, even of some of the things we see here.
So, so we have some of the stuff here, but before, for me, the message of the holidays, like in this holiday, in a lot of Jewish holidays, we have this like big miracles that happen, like splitting of the sea, and all these huge things. And this holiday, actually, the story, if you know the story, you can Google it.
This is the story of Esther.
Yeah, right? So the story, and you can Google it if you want. We're not going to get into it. But in this story, it actually almost sounds like a fairy tale. Oh, it could have happened in any natural, could be. There's not even, God didn't do anything. So for us, it's actually the message of the story that God is everywhere in our day-to-day life, even if we don't see this huge miracles happening. And I think it helps us, kind of live life. This is a message for us today. We take the message from this is, what we can do today is look at our life and know that even there's no big splitting of seas or any huge miracles, it's in our life.
I'm curious about that. We've heard less about it in recent months, but as I mentioned a moment ago, a year and a half, do you feel there's been an increase in anti-Semitism nationally? And do you feel that here in Jacksonville?
Well, there's certainly been an increase in incidents and anti-Semitism globally, nationally. There have been episodes here in Jacksonville. And that's why Purim is really coming at the perfect time. Because instead of becoming intimidated or in any way negatively impacted by these incidents, it actually galvanizes the Jewish community to come together. And that's what Purim does. On Purim, we celebrate, we support, and it's the most joyous day on the Jewish year. And instead of becoming depressed or down about what we're seeing, it's actually inspiring, uplifting, and encouraging. And this year, with 8 different Chabad centers across the First Coast, there's dozens of celebrations, and hundreds and thousands of Jewish people on the First Coast will be celebrating this joyous day together.
So are the celebrations that we're talking about just for people who are Jewish? Is it something that you expand? Is it something that you're educating your neighbors? Hey, here's what my community looks like.
I'll tell you, it's so inspiring and uplifting when our non-Jewish friends and neighbors come over and say, I heard of a story going on right now at Columbia University, so I just want you to know that we support the Jewish community. And that's really so uplifting and such a beautiful message to hear. And I'm so grateful to all of our beautiful friends and neighbors who reach out and share these sentiments in person and online.
Yeah. Hannah, I'm curious, why do people maybe dress up costumes? I understand, and we've got some of the things here that are part of the celebration.
Right, so the message that we said, was the hidden miracle, right? The miracle that happened kind of in a natural occurrence of that seems, just not. So we dress up, so, it's concealed. We wear a costume or anything that we conceal ourselves. And then also we have this hamantashen.
These are hamantashen.
Right.
And what you have
is a baked good of sorts.
It's a pastry of
It's
sorts.
a pastry.
Okay.
And similar to the costumes, as Chana mentioned, where we're concealing our actual face. And here you have a pastry. This is an apricot hamantash where the sweet jelly is concealed inside of the dough. That's the way.
Inside.
Yes. On Purim, the miracle wasn't an open and beautiful and loud bang. It wasn't this amazing. It was naturally, in the book of Esther, we have the story of Esther. We read the book of Esther on Purim. And God doesn't openly have any miracles. It just seems
Actually,
that...
it's not mentioned here at all.
That's right. His name is not even mentioned in the Megillah. But, of course, the salvation comes at the end through the natural course of events. And sometimes in our daily lives, we don't see God in an open way. But really, the story of Purim is that our life is filled with miracles.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is, and I appreciate that. What I've seen, even in just chatting with you a little bit today, you've got an outgoing, effervescent kind of vibe or spirit.
That's what I'm going for.
And I appreciate it. I appreciate the idea of inclusion, as you mentioned, for neighbors who are not Jewish to understand more about the community. Thank you so much. Thank you for celebrating a little bit with us today, and thank you for sharing your insights today.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
All right, so we are also working to speak with Florida CFO Jimmy Patronis. We've got an invitation out to JEA Chief Executive Vicki Cavey. These are all things we're working on for you later this month. I'm Ken Justice. Thanks for watching on air on Channel 4 and the CW17 and online at news4jax.com or streaming on News4Jax Plus.
See why every day more people are choosing News4Jax, Northeast Florida and South Georgia's #1 source for local news.